Most gardeners spend thousands on chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and fancy equipment, only to watch their plants struggle, their soil die, and their wallet drain month after month. But there is a transformation system that turns any failing garden into a thriving ecosystem in just 30 days, using nothing but natural methods that cost pennies and work with nature instead of against it. The problem isn't that your soil is bad or your climate is wrong. It is that conventional gardening treats the earth like a factory floor instead of a living organism that feeds itself when you give it the right conditions. Here is how to completely transform your garden in 1 month using the eco-friendly methods that regenerative farmers have proven can triple yields while eliminating the need for chemicals forever. The real problem, the fundamental mistake killing your garden, isn't lack of fertilizer. It's lack of life, because healthy soil isn't dirt. It's a living community of billions of microorganisms, fungi, and beneficial bacteria that break down organic matter, create nutrients plants can actually absorb, and build soil structure that holds water and resists disease. And every time you add synthetic fertilizers or chemical pesticides, you're re-sterilizing that community and forcing your plants to survive on life support instead of thriving in a self-sustaining ecosystem. Here's the truth nobody in the garden industry wants you to know. Chemical fertilizers are like junk food for plants. They provide a quick hit of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but they do nothing to build soil health. And worse, they actually destroy the microbial life that creates long-term fertility, which means you become dependent on buying more fertilizers every year just to maintain the same yields. It's a cycle designed to keep you spending, not to make your garden thrive. The 30-day transformation system, the eco-friendly transformation, works because it rebuilds soil biology in layers, starting with the foundation and adding complexity week by week until you have a garden that feeds itself and requires almost no external inputs. And it all happens in 30 days because nature works fast when you remove the obstacles and provide the right conditions. Week 1. Stop the damage and add organic matter. Day 1 starts with the hardest decision most gardeners will ever make. Throw away your synthetic fertilizers and chemical pesticides, because you cannot rebuild soil life while simultaneously poisoning it. And the moment you stop adding chemicals is the moment recovery begins. Next, cover every square inch of bare soil with organic matter, which means wood chips on paths, straw between plants, shredded leaves around perennials, and compost anywhere you can spread it. Because bare soil is dead soil, and the microorganisms that create fertility need food, which is what organic matter provides as it slowly decomposes. Here's what happens in week 1. The organic matter creates a protective layer that moderates soil temperature, reduces water evaporation, suppresses weeds, and starts feeding the microbial community that's been starving under years of chemical treatments. You won't see dramatic changes yet, but underground, billions of organisms are waking up and beginning to colonize the fresh organic matter you just provided. Week 2. Introduce beneficial biology by day 8. It's time to accelerate the process by adding concentrated sources of beneficial microorganisms that will jumpstart the soil food web. And the cheapest, most effective way to do this is making actively aerated compost tea, which is just finished compost steeped in water with a small amount of molasses to feed the microbes, while an aquarium pump provides oxygen. Brew the tea for 24 to 36 hours. Then dilute it and drench your soil and spray it on plant leaves. And what you're doing is inoculating your garden with millions of beneficial bacteria, fungi, and protozoa that will colonize the organic matter you added in week 1 and begin the process of breaking it down into plant-available nutrients. But here's the part most gardeners miss. You also need to add mycorrhizal fungi, which form symbiotic relationships with plant roots and extend their reach by hundreds of feet, effectively giving your plants access to nutrients and water far beyond what their roots alone could reach. And you can buy mycorrhizal inoculant or simply add a handful of soil from a healthy forest or undisturbed grassland, which contains billions of fungal spores ready to colonize your garden. The transformation in week 2 is invisible but profound, because you're rebuilding the underground infrastructure that makes all future growth possible. Your plants might look the same, but their roots are now connected to a network of beneficial organisms that will feed and protect them for years to come. Week 1. Stop the damage and add organic matter. Day 1 starts with the hardest decision most gardeners will ever make. Throw away your synthetic fertilizers and chemical pesticides, because you cannot rebuild soil life while simultaneously poisoning it. And the moment you stop adding chemicals is the moment recovery begins. Next, cover every square inch of bare soil with organic matter, which means wood chips on paths, straw between plants, shredded leaves around perennials, and compost anywhere you can spread it. Because bare soil is dead soil, and the microorganisms that create fertility need food, which is what organic matter provides as it slowly decomposes. Here's what happens in week 1. The organic matter creates a protective layer that moderates soil temperature, reduces water evaporation, suppresses weeds, and starts feeding the microbial community that's been starving under years of chemical treatments. You won't see dramatic changes yet, but underground, billions of organisms are waking up and beginning to colonize the fresh organic matter you just provided. Week 4. Plant diversity and living mulches. The final week is about adding complexity through diversity, which is nature's strategy for resilience and productivity. Because monocultures are fragile and require constant intervention, while diverse plantings create synergies where different species support each other and fill different niches in the soil food web. Interplant nitrogen-fixing legumes like clover, beans, or peas among your vegetables, and their root nodules will harbor bacteria that pull nitrogen from the air and make it available to neighboring plants, effectively fertilizing your garden for free while you harvest edible crops at the same time. Add dynamic accumulators like comfrey and yarrow, which have deep roots that mine nutrients from subsoil and bring them to the surface where shallow-rooted plants can access them. And when you cut these plants and use them as mulch, you're transferring nutrients from deep soil layers to the root zone without any digging or importing materials. Plant pollinator attractors like borage, calendula, and phacelia, which bring beneficial insects that pollinate crops and prey on pests, reducing the need for any pest control while adding beauty and additional harvests from edible flowers. By day 30, your garden has been transformed from a sterile chemical-dependent system to a living ecosystem where plants, microorganisms, insects, and fungi all work together to create the conditions for abundance. And the best part is that this system gets stronger every year as soil life builds and organic matter accumulates, meaning your garden becomes more productive and more resilient with less work over time. The methods that make it work. The transformation system has 5 core principles that work together to create results that seem impossible until you see them in your own garden. Principle 1. No bare soil ever. Bare soil is an ecological disaster. It erodes, compacts, loses moisture, and bakes in the sun, killing the surface microorganisms that drive nutrient cycling. And covering every inch with organic mulch solves all these problems while adding the carbon that feeds soil life. Wood chips for paths, straw for annual beds, shredded leaves for perennials, and living mulches like clover for long-term plantings. The specific material matters less than the consistency of coverage, because any organic mulch is better than bare ground. Principle 2. Feed biology, not chemistry. Plants don't eat chemical fertilizers. They eat organic molecules produced by microorganisms breaking down organic matter. And when you bypass biology with synthetic inputs, you create weak plants that depend on constant fertilization and become targets for pests and diseases. Feed the soil organisms with compost, manure, plant residues, and cover crops, and they'll feed your plants with a complete spectrum of nutrients in perfect balance, plus hormones, enzymes, and protective compounds that no fertilizer can provide. Principle 3. Diversity creates resilience. Monocultures fail. They attract specialized pests, deplete specific nutrients, and create conditions where diseases spread rapidly. And the industrial solution is more chemicals to fight the problems that monoculture creates. But diversity solves these problems naturally. Multiple crop species use different nutrients, attract different beneficial insects, and confuse pests, that specialize on single plants. And the more diverse your plantings, the more stable and productive your garden becomes without any external inputs. Principle 4. Work with succession, not against it. Nature never leaves soil bare. When one plant community finishes, another is already emerging to take its place. And working with this natural succession means your garden never stops producing and never loses fertility to erosion or nutrient leaching. Plant cover crops immediately after harvest. Interplant quick crops with slow ones. Use relay planting to keep soil covered and productive year-round. And you'll eliminate the dead periods that waste growing time and degrade soil health. Principle 5. Build soil. Don't mind it. Conventional gardening extracts nutrients season after season until the soil is depleted and dependent on fertilizers to grow anything. But regenerative methods add more organic matter than they remove, building soil depth, fertility, and water-holding capacity year after year. Return all plant residues to the soil as mulch or compost. Add manure, leaves, or other organic materials from outside the garden. Plant cover crops that die in place and become green manure. And your soil will literally grow deeper and richer every season instead of eroding and depleting.
Principle 5. Build soil. Don't mine it. Conventional gardening extracts nutrients season after season until the soil is depleted and dependent on fertilizers to grow anything. But regenerative methods add more organic matter than they remove, building soil depth, fertility, and water-holding capacity year after year. Return all plant residues to the soil as mulch or compost. Add manure, leaves, or other organic materials from outside the garden. Plant cover crops that die in place and become green manure. And your soil will literally grow deeper and richer every season instead of eroding and depleting.
What the results look like. A garden transformed by these eco-friendly methods looks different from conventional gardens in ways that are immediately obvious and impossible to fake. The plants are darker green, thicker stemmed, and more vigorous. Leaves are glossy and pest-free. Growth is rapid and consistent. And yields are higher despite using no synthetic inputs because the plants are accessing complete nutrition from a thriving soil ecosystem instead of surviving on the limited elements in chemical fertilizers. The soil itself changes texture and color. It becomes darker, crumbly, and full of earthworms. It holds water like a sponge but drains freely and never compacts. And it smells rich and earthy instead of chemically sterile or sour from anaerobic conditions. Pest and disease problems decline dramatically because healthy plants growing in healthy soil have strong immune systems and produce defensive compounds that repel pests naturally. And the diverse plantings attract beneficial insects that keep pest populations in check without any spraying. Water needs drop by half or more because organic matter in the soil acts like a reservoir that holds moisture and releases it slowly to plant roots. And the living mulch on the surface prevents evaporation, meaning you can cut watering frequency without plants suffering. The transformation is permanent. Here's what makes this system fundamentally different from conventional gardening. Once you've rebuilt soil biology and established these eco-friendly methods, the garden maintains itself with minimal intervention. Because you're not fighting nature anymore, you're working with it. The microorganisms keep reproducing and spreading. The organic matter keeps breaking down and building stable soil carbon. The diversity keeps attracting beneficial insects and confusing pests. And the system becomes more productive and more resilient every year without requiring increased inputs. You're not dependent on buying fertilizers or pesticides anymore. You're not hoping that the chemicals you apply will work this time. You're not watching your soil degrade despite spending more money every season. Instead, you have a garden that feeds itself, protects itself, and gets stronger over time. A garden that produces abundance without destroying the ecosystem it depends on. A garden that works with nature instead of against it. The 30-day transformation isn't about perfection, it's about direction. And once you start moving in the right direction by feeding soil life instead of poisoning it, by building diversity instead of simplifying it, by adding organic matter instead of mining nutrients, the momentum carries forward and the results compound year after year. So start today, clear out the chemicals. Cover the soil with organic matter, add compost and compost tea, plant diversity, and watch what happens when you stop fighting against nature and start working with it. Because the garden you've been trying to create with chemicals and control already exists. You just have to remove the obstacles and let it emerge.